What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. I am here today at a track just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we're here for CFMoto. This is a new company to me. They've been around for a while, mainly in the four-wheeler, side-by-side type of market, but they have this whole new line of motorcycles that have released somewhat recently, and I'm out here today, flew in just for the day, so we can sort of test ride all this stuff on Moto-Monday, and this is going to be kind of overwhelming. As you saw, some of the guys that are taking off right now, they have little 125 Papios, they have some 300s like this guy over here, they have a naked version of the 300, they have this beautiful thing, the CLX Sport 700. I'm super excited on that one. And then we have some adventure bikes and just like a little bit of everything. So I'm going to try to go through all of these bikes in order, starting with the 125 all the way up to the biggest and baddest, which is probably the CLX Sport over here. And I'm going to give you guys some of my impressions. We'll kind of dive into specs a little bit, but there's so much to talk about here. I'm probably going to get a lot of the specs and stuff like that wrong, so I'll leave some links in the description down below if you want to see any of these other bikes. Alright, first up here we have the Papio, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are excited about. I'm pretty excited about because it's very comparable to the Honda Grom, the Kawasaki Z125. This one-ups them, literally one-ups them. This is a 126cc motor and kind of similar size, similar looking seating position. So we're going to hop on this thing, do a couple laps. So first and foremost, I feel like this may sit a little bit lower than my Grom. Ergos and everything still feel relatively the same. I feel like where the foot pegs are a little bit more forward, so I might be seated a little bit more upright, unless I'm like really up on the tank. But yeah, feels pretty familiar to me. Listen to that power right there. So I was told that these things have 6 gears, so I'm curious to see what that's going to feel like. Also curious what a stock CFMoto Papio is going to top out at. We got one little long stretch here, so we'll see what we can do. This feels different. Feels very different. Got a little chicane here just to keep everyone's speed under control. We're really not supposed to like race around this track, but this is a straight here. 3rd gear. There's little tar snakes all over this track too, so kind of have to be careful. High revving there, that was about 10,000 until we hit the rev limiter. 55, 56, 5th gear, 57, 59, 60 into 6th gear, and I'm running out of track here. I really don't want to come screaming into these corners on a bike that I'm not super familiar with right now, but one thing to note about this bike and all of the CFMoto line that we're taking a look at today is that they are very affordable. I believe this Papio right now is coming in at $2,999, so $3,000 MSRP. I'm not sure what it looks like from a dealer because I've honestly never seen any of these motorcycles until today, but that is cheaper than a Grom, cheaper than a Z125, and it's really filling in the whole mini bike market. Now that the tires are a little bit more warmed up, let's carry a little bit more speed through the mini track this time. So this is the outer, bigger track right here. Turn signals. I believe some of these models have auto-canceling turn signals, so let's see here. Not sure if it comes on this bike or not. Looks like it's still on, so maybe not on the Papio, but on definitely the bigger bikes. Brakes feel good. Obviously you don't need crazy good brakes to stop a tiny little bike like this, but it hooks up pretty well. I'm also used to riding my Grom with dirt tires on it, so it's kind of nice having streetable tires, or I should say more streetable tires compared to the big blocks that I had. I feel like this picks up a little bit quicker than my Grom. Might be the like the throttle feel, but it's so hard to tell unless you ride them like back to back. Since this is like the smallest, most affordable bike that CFMoto has out right now, this one does not have ABS, I believe, but all of their other ones do. Pretty cool looking styling on this though. It's kind of like the second gen Groms that were out. Seat is definitely comfortable. I feel a lot more upright. I guess maybe because I can sit back a little further. I'm not sure. This little bike is perfect for stuff like this, so just flick it around all the cones if you're navigating through a city, commuting. See if we can go a little bit faster here. We're talking 55, 56, 57. Let's go to 6th gear just because we have it. 61. Whoa. 63. So I'm curious if on a long stretch if I could get this thing up to like 70 or so. I'm gonna have to constantly be head checking here because there's bikes of all varying sizes. I'm on the slowest, smallest bike right now, and people on bikes like that in front of me, the 700, can come ripping through corners. Now, we were told specifically not to do wheelies and stuff like that, so probably won't. Oh, there's a freaking cone in the middle of the track right here. Now, because we have so many bikes, I think I'm gonna leave the Papio at these impressions for now. It's definitely kind of exactly what I expected. It's a little mini bike, 125, technically 126, and I dig it. These bikes are so fun, and they make for great beginner bikes. Especially given the price point now, like you're going to be able to get something like this way cheaper than a Grom. You can find them at some specific dealers around America, and you can get support on them. I believe all of the bikes that we're testing today too also will come with a 2-year warranty. So if you're new into motorcycles, like the last Moto-Monday video that I did, I talked about getting a first bike. Stuff like this, a brand new bike with relatively low cost and a warranty like that, that sounds kind of nice to me. So let's see what the next bike up in line is. Alright, next up we have the CFMoto 300 SS. There's also another version of this bike here, which is similar, the 300 NK, so a naked version of this bike. It's going to be hard to ride all of them, so I'm probably going to lump the full fairinged and naked bikes sort of in together, unless I have time to ride the others. So this is a 300 sport bike, which I don't know if I've ever even ridden a 300. Typically, like, I've owned 600s and leader bikes, ridden some 750s, but I don't think I've ridden a sport bike this small before. One thing that I'm already noticing is that seat height is low, which is good for new riders. Also the peg height though, looks like the bike is pretty low to the ground compared to what I'm used to. Riding position should be a little bit more upright. There's LED lights all around, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see the screen here, but really nice screens on these bikes too, so something that I like. It's been a while since I've been on a sport bike like this. Clutch on the Papio and this are both very light, very easy to pull. This one lets out a little bit far out. Something that I would probably adjust if it was my own bike, but man, people keep hitting these freaking cones over here. That's the power of a 700 versus a 300. Sure does feel like a sport bike though. So there we got up to 70, 75-ish pretty quickly. I'm not sure what tires are on this bike. I probably should have checked that out because this is a bike that you're really going to want to lean over. Ergos and everything feel pretty good though. Again, a little more upright. Seat is plenty big. I do feel pretty low to the ground though, just because I'm used to riding bigger sport bikes. Now this is a model where we are getting up into like all the ABS and sort of like the creature comforts. So all the switches on here are very nice. There's a different mode selection here. I'm not even sure what mode we are in right now. Oh, I guess we're in sport. Is that correct? Tap that. Oh, now we're in eco mode. The whole screen just changed on the dash. Okay, so very easy to tell what mode you're in then. Eco mode, let's see what else we have. Okay, it's just eco and sport, so I guess we'll stay in sport mode for now since that's what we started in. Horn. Now the brakes on a bike like this, I believe, are single-sided up front, so this thing is not going to stop like what I would consider like a traditional sport bike, but it does okay. Again, this bike is not super heavy. I don't know the actual wet weight on it right now, but definitely feels pretty light and flickable. Slipper clutch as well, that's another thing. Yeah, the brakes, like coming into a corner like that, if I really want to slow down quickly, I think I'd want them to be a little bit stronger, but then again, this bike is also probably really new. Yeah, 73 miles on this thing, so probably still needs to seat a little bit, kind of break in. Alright, let's see how quick we can go on this straight right now. I bet on the bigger bikes you'll be able to get up to 100. And go. Alright, almost 80. I think this bike, just after these quick like 2-3 lap impressions, this bike is going to be suited for people who want to ride a sport bike, but maybe you're new to riding, but you also want to commute on a sport bike. Generally, like high-powered leader bikes like my old ZX-10R, that thing is not a great commuter just because it's such an aggressive like riding stance. You're really hunched over. On a bike like this, you're a little bit more opened up. My seating position has my back a little bit straighter and a little more upright, so I could definitely see riding this thing for decently long distances, for commutes, downtown, in urban environments. So I think that's kind of where this bike is going to really shine in like the consumer market. I'm not exactly sure of the price on this one off the top of my head. I'll pop it up here in the corner. I think it was around maybe $4 grand. So I mean, if that price is right in my head, that's not too bad for a motorcycle like this. What's in front of me here? I think that might be this bike, but naked. I don't want to be rude and pass because I'm sure this guy is also moto vlogging, but oh, that's a 650 naked. Okay, so we haven't got up to that yet. Definitely a 650 compared to this 300. One thing that, of course, someone like me is going to be interested in with all these bikes is the aftermarket support. Not sure what companies, if any, are going to be making aftermarket parts for stuff like this, like say an exhaust, but I think CFMoto has positioned this whole line of bikes really towards newer riders or even experienced riders who want to kind of get onto a different platform. Like me, for example, I like a lot of different motorcycles, but one thing that I've never really owned or like ridden or tested a lot are cafe style racer type of bikes. So the styling of the 700s that we're going to get on here in a little bit, that is right up my alley. Even though I've never really talked about it or owned anything like that, I think they're really sharp looking bikes and the power should be there. It's really hard for me to not just jump straight up to that bike because I really want to ride it, but we're going through these slowly. So those were my 3 laps on the 300SS. The naked bike, I actually took that out before I started filming just to get a lay of the track, and feels very similar, a little bit more comfortable. If I had to pick between the 300SS and the 300NK, I'd probably honestly opt for the naked just because the seating position is up a little bit more. Maybe that's a sign of me getting old or something, I don't know. I prefer to be comfortable on motorcycles though, and the naked's definitely a little bit more comfortable than this guy. So next in the line, I'm honestly not sure what's next. I guess we'll see. Alright, next up, moving up the line, finally into the 600 class. We're looking at the CFMoto 650 naked right now. The other bike kind of comparable to this, which I'm probably going to ride just after this, is the ADVentura, their adventure bike sitting over there. So this thing is definitely getting into more of my style of bike. So we got a naked sort of Street Fighter-esque sport bike. It's definitely going to be comfortable. What kind of tires we got on here? Some Pirelli Gran Turismos. Okay. I think I used to have tires like that on like a really old sport bike. Not super familiar with them though. So everything on here pretty much on par with some of the other bikes, like the 300 that we just got off of. Really nice controls, ABS, 2 different modes here. So we're probably in eco mode. This button, when it pops out, I believe that's in sport mode. I think I'm going to like this a lot more than the 300. Not that there was anything wrong with the 300, but very nice screen on this one as well. We are in sport mode. Let's go into eco mode to start. Ooh, already sounds better. Kind of feels better too. Let's see how it does out on the track. I like the sound of this bike. It's kind of quiet until the RPMs get up a little bit more. When I'm actually riding, I'm sure it'll get even louder. Woohoo, yeah, okay. I already love the characteristics of this more than the 300 SS that we just got off of. Maybe I'm more of a naked bike kind of guy now. I really like the comfortable riding position. This one obviously has a lot more power than the 300. Shifting feels smooth. I believe these bikes have slipper clutches. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. And almost 100 miles an hour there. I dig it. I really like this seat. I can't actually show you guys while I'm riding right now, but when I got on the throttle there, it kind of sucked me back, and there's like a nice little back support. So definitely feel very planted in this seat. The upright riding position, I just feel like I feel comfortable leaning this thing into turns. The brakes on this one already feel way better than the 300. It's kind of not really fair to compare this and the 300 that we were just on, but if I had to take a pick other than the Papio, which is just a really fun bike, I think this one might be in the lead, and then the 300 naked, and then the 300 SS. Now let's hop into the little track quick. Let's do some harder braking. Ooh, I think I felt the ABS kick on there. So harder braking coming into here. Still feels pretty planted. ABS, like I talked about in the last Moto-Monday video, it's a great feature to have on a bike, especially for new riders. If you're buying used, older bikes typically will not come with ABS, but almost every bike nowadays is coming with that, and it's a really nice safety feature to have. And then when you couple that with a bike like this, which is coming in at a very affordable price point, I'm not telling you to go out and buy a brand new motorcycle for your first bike, but if you do like buying new, this might be something to look at. All of these bikes for that matter. Yeah, I really like this thing. Just the way it handles these like tight little corners. Feels pretty freaking good. One more hot lap here. Yeah, so engine braking there, just a quick downshift into second. You can definitely feel that slipper clutch. I really don't like all these little tar snakes that they put out here, but I guess that's what you gotta do. I don't even feel like I have to tuck all that much. There was a proper 102 miles an hour. Because the tank on this guy is so big and I'm seated a little bit more upright, I don't feel like I really have to like lean over and lay on the tank to get a good tuck. If you're gonna ride this thing long distance, a nice fairing would throw that wind right up over top of you, and yeah, I think this is now my favorite bike in the lineup until we get up to the 700. Will the 700 dethrone my thoughts on this guy? I guess we'll find out, but before we get to that, we have to get onto the ADVentura, the adventure version of this bike. I think because the fairings are different, I believe the suspension is a little bit different too. I think they're going to ride a lot differently compared to the 300 SS and the 300 naked. But we'll see when we get back in. Definitely enjoying my time on this thing right now though. Woohoo! In the past, I would say that I like the sound of an inline 4 a little bit more than something like this, but this thing sounds pretty good. Throw a little exhaust on here. I could dig it. Got a little radar gun right here doing 50. Yep, yeah, that's about right. Alright, hopefully the adventure bike is over here because that is up next. Next up, we're moving on to the CFMoto 650 ADVentura, their adventure bike. I haven't ridden a whole lot of adventure bikes, so this one's going to be kind of different for me. I believe it's going to be very comparable to the 650 Naked we were just on. Maybe a little bit more uprighted seating position. Nice big wind fairing to throw that wind over top of you. Styling, pretty on par with a lot of other adventure bikes out there, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I used to think bikes like this were super ugly and I would never own one, but times change, my friends. Alright, this one sounds and feels a little bit different than the 650 Naked, actually. It does feel like a bigger bike. Ooh, and this seat is freaking cushy, man, compared to the last one. So there are quite a few differences, I guess. I'm assuming power will feel pretty similar. Yeah, power feels pretty similar. I'm surprised how much bigger this bike feels than the Naked version. It's relatively the same. I guess it's the seating position, the taller bars. Definitely feels pretty maneuverable. I totally understand how people ride these completely across the country, though. I've been on this for a minute, and I'm super comfortable. The wind is not rocking my helmet right now. Doing 100 miles an hour. Brakes feel good, especially for a heavier bike. But then also this thing is going to be pretty nimble at the same time. I kind of wish we could like take these things a little bit off-road, like up through stuff like that, because an adventure bike is really made for kind of like touring across the country and going on adventures. So you're going to be going on trails and off-road and camping off of a motorcycle. Something I should really do because that ties in a lot of things that I love. This thing feels good, like different than the Naked, but it still feels good. It's just a different riding experience. This is going to be hard to pick between this and the 650, I think. Alright, let's hop into the tighter sections, do some hard braking. Yep, ABS definitely works on this thing. Since this bike has some like taller handlebars and I'm seated more upright, like I can really use counter steering methods to like kind of flick this thing around in tight little corners like this, navigating parking lots, navigating on trails. The throttle delivery seems pretty smooth, so it's not jerky even when I have to really feather the throttle going at lower speeds. Man. This thing kind of feels like a car. Like I feel like I have the safety of a car with a windshield and just being like upright on a super comfortable seat. I don't know. That goes to show that I don't ride adventure bikes very often. Man, but you can like flick it around in corners too. Okay. May like this one more than the Naked. I didn't think I was gonna say that, but I didn't even look. Does this thing have bags on it? Okay, this one does not, but 102, 104. One of the other bikes here does have bags on it, and I think these are all kind of coming standard with bags on them, which would be nice. I don't really have a need to carry gear on a motorcycle other than just a backpack, but maybe adventure bike is like the next move. I think this bike has surprised me the most out of all of them so far. I guess just surprised me the most because I didn't really think I was going to love it, but I do like it quite a lot. Slipper clutch on this guy as well too. Engine braking when I really don't need to. You can feel that. Essentially what that does is if you don't have a slipper clutch and you engine brake really hard, your rear tire could skid and kind of bounce a little bit. Ah, crap. I was supposed to get off there. Guess we're doing one more lap. And the 700 is smoking me. Oh, man. Yeah, so a slippered clutch essentially allows you to engine brake without your rear tire skidding and bouncing around. That's essentially what I was saying before started racing the 700. Speaking of which, that bike is now next. So let's go and see what the 700 is all about. Next up, we've got the CLX 700. This one is probably going to be pretty comparable to the 650 Naked that we rode, 650 NK. Similar seating position, although this looks a little bit wider. I think the handlebars are a little bit wider too. Of course, bigger displacement. Still single-sided rotor up front, but I believe the Sport version has full Brembos, so that one's going to stop a little bit quicker. I'm really excited about that one. Cool styling on this one though, kind of scrambler cafe racer-esque. Again, LED lights all throughout this thing. Again, coming in pretty affordable. I think this thing's at like $6 grand brand new, something like that. It's pretty intriguing. See how it sounds, how it rides. Sounds good. Already feels pretty good. This thing definitely feels a little bit wider on the bars already. Lower to the ground than the adventure bike, of course. Woo! Damn. Woo! That thing is punchy, man. That's quite a big difference from the 650. Curious to see how that feels on the straight. Tires on this guy are a little bit different as well. Let's see, we're at 4K. Let's start a roll from about 4,000. Yeah. Man, you get up into that 5,000–6,000 range and this thing really has a nice power band. It really takes off. Underneath that though, like right here around 4,000, feels really comfortable. You can feel the power come on once you get those RPMs up a little bit higher. I don't know if this is necessarily my style of bike. It's like cafe racer-ish type of styling, but so far, feels really nice, rides really nice. Let's be honest, I just love motorcycles. I love all kinds of motorcycles, so this whole day is kind of a treat, just being able to ride all different kinds, different displacements, some different features. I like it a lot. Now we're gonna hop into the mini section over here. I'm just gonna leave the turn signal on now and see when the auto cancel actually works. Oh, it worked. Okay, cool. I dig that feature. I can't tell you how many times I put my turn signal on basically any motorcycle, and then I ride for miles and miles just signaling that I'm turning even though I'm not. I feel like every motorcycle should have auto cancel turns like that. It's really nice. So this one feels pretty comparable to the 650 Naked riding through this section. Definitely nimble, nice comfortable riding position. The seat and bike overall feel a little bit wider than the 650, but still handles relatively the same. I'm really not familiar with the suspension on basically any of these bikes. I forget the name brand. You guys can find out all that stuff on their website, but feels pretty good. Do like the ABS too. Brakes on this one, although it's single-sided, they feel pretty good. Now let's open this thing up a little bit more. Man, second gear, when you're high in the RPMs, it freaking rips you. It rips you back. Definitely more noticeable higher RPM power out of this thing. Of course, it's a bigger displacement. Kind of has a nice sound to it too. I think the 650 was a little bit deeper. There's 100 on a naked bike. Definitely getting blasted by the wind, especially because the bars are wide, so your shoulders are kind of up and out and you're just like a big sail catching all the wind. But this bike isn't really made to be doing like 100, 150 on the highway. I'm actually curious what something like this would top out at. Today we're not going to be able to find that out though. Man, again though, like I keep saying about a lot of these bikes, it's comfortable, it's affordable, it's got good features to it. I like that CFMoto is kind of coming into the American market and putting out good value and what seems to be good quality motorcycles. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to speak to the longevity of bikes like this, but with that 2-year warranty, seems like they back their product, and that's something that I like. I would really have to have one of these bikes like in my own environment, riding around the way I do, to really get good impressions of all these different bikes, but maybe that can be arranged. I still have to decide what my favorite is though. I like this bike, but I had a ton of fun on this 650 adventure bike. I'm thinking the sport version may win me over. I may have to go back through and ride some of the other bikes again, just like back to back, so I really know that I'm making an informed decision and I know which one I actually like most. So one more, the bike that I've been waiting to ride this whole time. Let's get into that. And last but not least, the CFMoto CLX 700 Sport, as you can see right here. So compared to the regular CLX, different styling on the back here. I freaking love the look of this, just riding around behind some of these out here on the track. I really love how clean this tail is. You can clean up something like that very easily. A little bit of carbon fiber accents. I think if I was picking any of these bikes style-wise, this is probably what I would opt for. Neon green, really cool carbon fiber up here over the dash. Something as simple as the bar and mirrors just make this bike look so rad. Like there's not a whole lot that I would change about this bike. Looking at it from the front here, you got the accent here around the headlight and these two little, are these functional? I think these might be functional intakes there. And then a little bit more green back here on the tail. Looks like, I guess they do have passenger pegs. I would not want to sit on that. I don't know if that's considered the seat or if this is like swappable, if you would pop that off and put a normal seat on there, but I ride solo a lot and this thing looks so sick. Let's take it out. We got all the Brembos on this guy here, so braking power should be really nice. They said to actually be careful. Ah, crap, we need gas. You guys have fuel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need some gas?
Yes, sir. All right. So this one is using clamp-ons here instead of the bars like on the other one. That is one thing that adds to the styling, making it appeal a little bit more to me. You can tell how much higher those bars are right there compared to this. I feel like the foot pegs may be a little bit higher on this thing too. I feel like I'm sitting on more of a sport bike. See how that second gear pull is? Oh my gosh. Feels like you're like hitting a freaking turbo button. Once you get into that power band, it just accelerates immediately. In a good way too, not a bad thing. So here we go, 4,000 and go. This feels a little more at home to me. This one feels kind of like my other sport bikes that I've owned in the past. Brakes feel pretty good. We'll test the brakes out more once we get into the slower section. Yeah, with the seating position of this bike and the different handlebars, like being clip-ons instead of actual handlebars like the last one, I like the handling characteristics of this a little bit more. Just feels more natural to me, just kind of what I'm used to. And that freaking power, man. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh my god, brakes are very nice on this bike. Again, this one is not crazy heavy, but full Brembos, man. You could definitely flip over the bars if you just stab that front brake. Short wheelbase, still not like a sport bike riding position, but a little bit more upright, with your hands a little bit lower compared to the other handlebars, so it's still very maneuverable at lower speeds like this. Yeah, man, those brakes feel really good. This is definitely the most like polished feeling bike that I've ridden so far. You kind of just want to hook up the brakes just because it's has such good stopping power. Alright, let's hop into the pack here, do one hot lap. See if we can go a little bit quicker now. Thank you for signaling B-Rad. I'll miss you. Man, 100 comfortable, no freaking problem there at all. Slowing down quick into the turns. It's nice to know that we have ABS on this thing if you really hit the hooks when you're cooking into a turn. Going a little bit too hot. Slipper clutch on this guy as well too. I think most of them from like, I guess definitely the 650. I'm not sure if the 300 is using that same slipper clutch, but it feels nice. That freaking power is like, it's intense. It's not quite as linear as like an inline 4, I guess. Very punchy. Smoothed out a little bit in third gear. Second gear pulls though, it's like boom, it like slams you back in the seat. Oh man. Now I have to go back through and ride some of these bikes again to really decide what is my favorite. This one's definitely up there, but what would I actually want to live with? Well guys, I think it's gonna have to be a split decision now. Currently back on the 650 ADVentura adventure bike, and this one is probably the most like shocking to me, the most surprising bike, because don't really ride touring bikes all that often, never owned one, and I just am so comfortable on this bike. It's quick. This wind fairing in front of me here allows me to do stuff like this on this straight. Miles an hour, super comfortably, and it handles so well. Even though you're sitting upright a little bit more than like what I'm traditionally used to, it just feels really good. But then on the other hand, we have the CLX 700 Sport, and this thing just has a ton of power delivery, unlike what I'm traditionally used to coming from sport bikes. But the power band on this thing just like sucks you back into the seat. It's definitely something that kind of have to get used to. Okay, we were in sport, so eco mode. Let's see how that feels with the throttle delivery. Okay, a little bit smoother when we're in eco mode. Yeah, so if you really want punchy power, sport mode on this thing is where it's at. But if you want a more tame, relaxed ride, because this bike is also very comfortable, you can pop it into eco mode, and it's super nice for cruising around town, ripping some back roads, some corners like this. Just gotta watch out for all these freaking tar snakes. So I would say it's pretty head-to-head between this and the 650 adventure bike. I like the comfort and the different riding feeling of the adventure bike, but then when it comes to this, I really like how it kind of feels like a sport bike. Like, it reminds me of what I'm traditionally used to. I prefer these clip-ons here as opposed to the handlebars on the other one too, so this one just feels right at home. And the style, man, the back of this bike just looks so dang cool. Big fan of how unique this bike is compared to everything else in their lineup and just motorcycles in general. Low speeds here, very comfortable to kind of counterbalance and get a feel for how the bike handles. You're not going to be as comfortable in high speed situations like with wind because you don't have a fairing on here, but you can kind of hunker down a little bit since the seating position is a little bit more aggressive. But then coming back to the adventure bike, I think it's kind of like refreshing to me just because it's really new. It's like a new riding experience for me. I am still pretty curious about how this thing would do like as an adventure bike, not on a track like this, like off on trails. What the heck happened in the chicane over here? The handling of this bike on the road with the ABS, super nice feature. Even though it is a little bit on the heavier side compared to bikes that I typically ride, it's still really flickable and kind of confidence inspiring. Like, I feel right at home on this bike, which typically takes a while to get used to a brand new motorcycle with different ergonomics, but this thing's just so comfortable. It's got great power delivery. Let's actually go from sport back into eco mode. Let's see how this is. I don't even know if I've ridden this in eco mode. I do like that you can change all the modes on these motorcycles really on the fly, so you kind of just press a button and then you got different power delivery. Just kind of leaning a big bike into a corner that feels like I'm riding on a lazy boy is just something about it. A bike like this makes me want to get on the interstate and ride across the country and camp from the motorcycle. So unfortunately, this is about all the time I have at this CFMoto event, all their 2022 motorcycle lineups. It's been great. So huge thanks to them for having me out here. Let me test ride all these motorcycles. I would really like to get more of like a long-term review on one of these bikes. I'm just not sure if or when that's going to be possible. I'm curious, if you guys made it all the way to the end of this video, what would you want to see me sort of long-term review? Something a little bit more sporty like this, or the adventure bike, or the Papio, the 300 SS, the 300 Naked. I mean, there's so many options here. You kind of have a different bike for different styles, different personalities, a little bit different uses. But overall, I'm glad I was able to test out these bikes because I knew nothing about them. They're affordable, got a lot of great features, definitely easy to recommend for some new riders out there. And I'm excited to see how CFMoto is going to keep innovating with all these motorcycles. I'm excited to see what else they bring into the States, and hopefully we get an even bigger lineup here in the future with more powerful bikes, different styles, a lot more features. Seems like there's a lot of possibilities, so I'm curious to see how that goes. So that is all that I had for today. If you guys have any questions on these bikes, let me know in the comments down below. Give this video a like. And also, if you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.